The full moon can be a powerful time for illuminating what is hidden. And when you combine that with divinatory tools like tarot, pendulum, bibliomancy, and others, you can gain some great, profound insights at this time. So, tonight we're going to be talking about several different divinatory tools that you can use to help you gain clarity at the full moon or any time of the lunar cycle, even if you are brand new to divination. So, Merry Meet, I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin, and I'm here tonight talking about divination methods for clarity. So, welcome to those who are joining us live. Merry Meet, everyone. So, as always, we'll have a Q&A at the end, and you can put questions in the chat. I'll be watching the chat as we go, so let us know that you are here. Say hello if you're in the chat. Merry Meet to Andrea and Kurt and any others who are joining us. Okay, so we are going to jump in. There's a lot to talk about tonight, but leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the video, and this will help us get it out to the feed of more people. All right, so let us dive in. I'm first going to talk about different divinatory tools. What we're first going to talk about is why the full moon is a good time to be using divinatory tools, and also how we can also use them at other times. We'll be talking about that as well. And we're going to be talking about some of the stumbling blocks that people face when they are trying to do divination. A lot of it will have to do with the belief, with their trust in themselves. A lot of times people come to divination ungrounded, uncentered. That can lead to issues. They may feel desperately in need of answers. That can lead to issues. So we're going to talk about some of those stumbling blocks as well. I will let you know that I was planning for this to have 6 different divination methods to talk about tonight, and we're only going to talk about 3 because otherwise the episode would be too long. So the good news is that means that we will have a second part 2 of this where we'll talk about the other 3. So tonight we're mainly going to be focusing on tarot and oracle cards, pendulum, and scrying techniques. These tend to be 3 of the main, especially tarot and oracle and pendulum, tend to be 2 of the main divination methods that a lot of people use. But we will also talk about scrying, which is one that maybe less people use, but still we can gain lots of great insights in a lot of different ways we can do it. So we'll be talking about that. And then in a future episode, we'll talk about bibliomancy as well as automatic writing, which I know a lot of people have been asking about, and also interpreting signs and symbols and things like tea leaves or candle wax, etc. Okay, so let us dive in. Let's talk about the full moon. So why divination? Why is it particularly good at the full moon? So for the first thing, divination is particularly good at the full moon because the full moon is a time of illumination. So not only are we at the peak of our power when it comes to the lunar cycle, we also have this clarity in the darkness, right? So anybody who goes out, if you go outside during the dark moon, you will notice a lot more darkness, obviously, than when you go out during the full moon. In the full moon, people will hike at night, right? Because it lights the trail. And it also can illuminate our own thoughts, our own, and give clarity to what is going on inside of us. It can shine a light on things that maybe we have been ignoring, maybe have been hidden to us, things that we have not been able to fully see up until that point, patterns, emotions. It can give us guidance into questions that we've been wondering about. Now, the full moon is also a time of peak lunar power, like I mentioned. So it's a time of the culmination of the cycle at its very height. In this particular cycle that we are in right now, so if you're watching this live or you're watching this in the next couple days or so, the full moon is on Thursday, July 10th at 1:36 p.m. Pacific, 4:36 p.m. Eastern. So that is the peak of the full moon. Many people will be celebrating the full moon on the night before, and then others will celebrate on that night. It kind of depends on when you can observe the full moon, and also whether you care about when you observe the full moon, if you're observing it before the peak or after the peak. Technically after the peak at 1:36 p.m. Pacific on Thursday, we are in the waning half of the cycle. So people will kind of choose which day they can to work with it. Now you might have intentions that you set during the new moon that are coming to fruition at the full moon. The full moon is also a great time to tap into and funnel that power of the lunar energy. And it's so toward any kind of goal, toward a manifestation that you might have. And it's also a good time for you to ask yourself questions like, what is complete? Because if you think about it, we're at the peak of the cycle. So what has been completed? What is ready to be, or what truth is ready to be acknowledged? So again, the moon is at its highest point. It's illuminating everything around it. So what are we able and ready to acknowledge? What are we not seeing clearly? So coming out of the darkness into the light of the full moon. So these are all questions that you can ask yourself. You can ask yourself these questions just simply in your contemplation. But as we're going to talk about tonight, you can also ask these questions of your divinatory tools. Another question, what needs to be released as I move into the dark half of the cycle? So once we pass out of the full moon, we pass into the darker half of the cycle on the way to the dark moon. And during that time, our body is asked to physically and energetically release something. So maybe we don't know what that is. And the clarity of the full moon can tell us what that thing is that we can work on during the second half of the cycle to release. So this is where our divination can come in, because outside of contemplation and meditative states, we can use the tools to help give us these answers. So whether you are using cards or the pendulum, scrying, other methods, divination, for clarity is a way for you to really open up and take advantage of this energy, open up a dialogue with your higher self, with your spirit guides, with spirit itself, with your ancestors, with the divine. Sometimes the lines between all of those are blurry, but what divination can do for you is it can help you to open up that dialogue. That's personally what I think of it as, is a phone line that kind of opens, and a way for me to connect to things outside of myself. So as we go through tonight's episode, I encourage you to share in the chat how you use divination. If you've tried any of the methods we're going to talk about tonight, we'd love to hear from you as well. And just saying hi to a few more joining us, Tabitha and Anthony and Cindy. Merry meet, everybody. And Sam is here as well. Merry meet. All right, so getting into divination. So as I mentioned, the episode itself, I'm doing it here on the full moon. I'm not calling this episode Divination for the full moon, because you can use any of these techniques at any time of the lunar cycle. But full moon is a good time to be doing them, which is why we're having the episode on the full moon, or nearing the full moon. So divination can be done in any part of the cycle, though, like I mentioned, the full moon, as we said, is very illuminating. It brings with it that illuminating energy, helps us to clear the clouds and the fog away from our eyes. But the veils also begin to thin slightly at the full moon, moving forward into the darker half of the cycle. And some will say, and I believe this to be true, that the veils are the absolute thinnest at the dark moon. So what that means is that you have this extra energy that is kind of boosting your intuition and your ability to turn inward as you move from the full moon into the darker half of the cycle. So from this point forward, this is a great time to be doing divination as well. Now, this is not to say you can do divination on any day. But what I do recommend is if people are having trouble with it, try it at the full moon, try it near the dark moon, the balsamic moon, and see if that aids you, if that helps you in getting clearer messages. Okay, so let us talk now. Before we dive into these methods we're going to talk about, I wanted to talk about the importance of grounding, because I don't think we speak about this enough. So I mentioned this to our shadow seekers, I believe, or maybe it was on an episode of Ask Aislin, that I was on this call one day with some spiritual people, and the woman who was running the call, she said that pretty much everybody she talks to, she works with, she's like an energetic healer. Everybody she works with is ungrounded. So even if they say, oh, I'm totally grounded, I'm totally fine, she's almost all of us are ungrounded in some ways. The reality is the world that we have chosen to incarnate into is a very hard one, a very painful one. It looks like it's getting worse day by day. So what this does is it keeps even those of us who have the desire to ground, it's going to keep us a little ungrounded. So we have this important aspect of in divination that we don't often think about, and that's the grounding part. So there is this deep connection between the root chakra and the third eye. So third eye is up in your upper chakras. It's what opens us up to everything around us. When your third eye is properly open and it doesn't have blockages in it, you can see clearly. You will be able to intuit messages around you in a better way than maybe you could if it wasn't as open. But this all goes back down to this connection to the root. So we can't really have a fully functioning third eye if we don't have a fully functioning root. So if you're not taking time to ground yourself daily, or at least before you do divination, you have already created some conflicting energy. So you're already going to be working against yourself. So this is why it's important to take your scattered energy, pull it in towards your center. So when we do rituals, a lot of times I will start with a very short, just minute long kind of visualization or meditation where you stand on a stage and you imagine everything to the left being the things in your past, and everything to the right being the things in your future, and you're standing in the center underneath the spotlights, and you're going to make an effort and an intention to stay in that present for as long as you can, as long as you're doing this working. So you don't have to just do a technique like that during a ritual. You can do it during your divination as well. Bring yourself back to center, call in all your scattered energies that are all over, worried about things going on with your family or friends or the world. Call all that into you. So you have all your energy here, and you're going to be better able to intuit the messages that are coming through in your divination, whichever tool you're using. When you are scattered, it can be much harder to interpret the signs coming through. So I can't stress that enough. So even if you think you're super grounded, I recommend still trying the technique, and I think that it is going to serve you. Now, the other thing is that when you are coming from a place of desperation, if you're coming from a place of fear, this is also when the messages can get confusing, and they can seem conflicting, and you may not be able to divine as well. So again, going back to taking the breath, doing some breath work, if you notice that you're in that kind of keyed up, desperate, or fearful state, taking some deep breathing that will help bring you down to center will help. So breathing in for a shorter inhale than your exhale will help to bring down your central nervous system. So for example, breathing in for a count of 3 and out for a count of 6, or in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 8. So again, sometimes people just dive in and they want to do the divination. But if we try all these techniques first, you're probably going to be more successful in what comes through for you. Because when we're coming from that desperate state, or we have a real investment in the answer of whatever we're divining, you may find that you get some conflicting messages coming through. So I'd love to hear in the chat, whether you're live or you're watching later, let us know, what's it like for you when you try to divine and you're nervous, or you're anxious, or you're fearful, or you're desperate, or feeling desperate, or you're feeling ungrounded. Have you ever noticed that there's a difference in the messages that come through for you when you're feeling like that versus when you're feeling grounded and centered and stable and energetically balanced? So yeah, so we'd love to hear from you. I know for me, my worst divinations are going to happen when I'm keyed up, I'm anxious, I'm desperate, all those, and I'm not grounded. Okay, so all right. So marry me to some others who are joining us. And I see Rose is also here, Mary Meet. And Andrea is talking. She says she likes working with tarot, oracle, and pendulum. Taliesin says loves his tarot. Yeah, a lot of people like tarot. Cindy said scrying. We are going to talk about scrying, and she said she had done some scrying earlier today. So we're definitely going to talk about that too. Okay, but share with us if what are your feelings on trying to do divination when you're feeling anxious, desperate, fearful? Have you ever noticed any difference in what comes through for you? Okay, so this is also why our energy balancing is so important. Working with our root chakra, working with the lower three chakras. In fact, working with your root will help ground you. Working with your sacral chakra will help you balance your emotions. And working with your solar plexus will help you with your confidence and your self belief. Because then the next thing I'm going to talk about is the problem of self doubt. So if you are somebody who is always struggling with self-doubt, you may also find that you have difficulty with divination. You may feel like you can't do it because you're always second guessing yourself. You're always questioning yourself. So if you feel that way, and that's going to be a lot of people, so don't feel bad if you're feeling that way. Self-doubt gets in my way too. If you're feeling that way, working on your self-belief is going to be a necessary step in the divination process. So we don't just sit down and we open up the box and pull out a card. We ground. We do some breath work. Maybe you've done some previous work with self belief. Now, another thing that you can do. So self belief as a long-term goal, there's a lot you can do working with the solar plexus, working with the element of fire. As a short-term technique to prepare you for a divination session, you can do some breath of fire. Breath of fire will activate the solar plexus and therefore will activate your self-belief. Even if just a little bit, it can help. If you've never done breath of fire before, you could think about like if you were panting like a dog, there's this little pumping of your belly, and then you just close your mouth and you do that in and out through your nose. So do a minute or two of that, and that can be enough to stimulate your confidence and help you have a better divination session. So I think that another little technique that a lot of people have said they've liked when they've tried it is something I started doing several years ago, probably when I was first starting to go live and do rituals, and my confidence wasn't at the place it is today when I was first starting out. And so I had this technique called tapping in the energy of self-belief. And I've done it sometimes in rituals, and people have said it's really helped them, especially if people are having trouble believing in themselves or believing in what we're doing, or, there's doubts, the collective doubt around us teaches us to question these things, question ritual, question spell work, question the messages coming through. So this little technique can help you sort of clear that before you sit down into your ritual, your spell work, or a divination session. So what you do is you begin to tap on the top of your crown, and you're just going to say 3 times, and I recommend saying it out loud so you activate the throat chakra. I'm calling in the energy of self-belief, calling in the energy of self-belief, calling in the energy of self-belief. And then I move down, and I do this on every chakra. So moving to the third eye, and I say 3 times, calling in the energy of self-belief. And then I'll do it on the throat 3 times, calling in the energy of self-belief, and then down on the heart 3 times, calling in the energy of self-belief on your solar plexus, which is right above your physical navel or your physical belly button. Right below it is your sacral chakra, and then for your root is the tip of your tailbone. The base of your spine is really where it's located. So then I imagine drawing all that energy that we've tapped in, we've called in all of that energy of self-belief, and you bring that down into your root chakra, and you just anchor it there. And it also serves as a grounding technique. So these are all things that you can do before you ever sit down and open the box of cards, or pull out the pendulum, or the scrying mirror, or the candle, or whatever you're going to be using for your divination. All right, so let us begin. So we're going to talk about tarot and oracle cards first. And then I'm going back to the chat because I always think it's so helpful for people to share what they experience. So like Anthony was saying if I'm feeling a certain way, I won't do tarot. I need to be somewhat calm, right? So it's very good to kind of know yourself. Like I was saying, I know that if I'm very desperate in my need for the answer, it's not really going to be coming from a good place. And I tend to get like the same kinds of cards. I know Beth has said this before, is like sometimes the same cards will come up that they're not really cards to answer you. They're cards to tell you to like put the deck away. That's sometimes what I get. I'll get like the same court card over and over and over and over again and nothing else. And it's usually, to me, it's a time to put it away. I'm probably not in a grounded place, or my energy isn't, it's too scattered to be doing the divination. So Taliesin said, same here. When he's upset, much harder to use intuition. Yeah, so it seems like a lot of people are experiencing this. Melinda said, I get the cards I fear when I draw from an ungrounded place. And that is an important thing to note as well. So sometimes, like if we come from a really ungrounded place, and let's say we have a real need to see a certain answer or have a real investment in a certain outcome, and we come from that place of fear or that ungrounded place, you will get the cards that you feared. You'll get the Tower, you'll get the Three of Swords, you'll get, the ones that you, or the Ten of Swords, is you get the ones that you don't necessarily want to see. And that doesn't mean that that is the future. It could be the future if you stay in that really keyed up, anxious state. It's just showing you that's like the state that you are in at that time, but it's probably not an accurate divination. Andrea said it's really confusing and she gets really confusing and scattered readings when my mind is anxious. She said I really have to ground. Sorry, just skips on me. I have to ground and clear my mind. Usually my readings make me more anxious when not grounded. Yeah, and then it can make it worse, right? So you're already anxious, then you're like, well, I'm going to do a reading to try to help myself feel less anxious. And you do the reading, but you're in the anxious state. And now you're getting the Tower and the Three of Swords and all of that. And now you're more anxious and now you're more ungrounded. So I recommend having some kind of a ritual that, you don't have to call deities and cast circles and quarters and everything. It doesn't have to be a full-blown ritual to do divination, but doing something where you ground and center, you call in your scattered energy, like I said, that method of standing on the stage or tapping in your self-belief, or some little ritual that you can do will help you to ground some of that scattered energy. So Taliesin said when his sister's ex came in, when his nephew was in his accident, he said, I picked the same cards for him, same card for him 4 times after reshuffling each time, but was confused in the meaning. Yeah. And it could just be your energy was just too scattered. So sometimes I say, it doesn't mean to discount it necessarily. Maybe there was a message coming through with that one card. Sometimes a card will come up over and over and over again if we are not seeing the meaning and it's really urgently trying to tell us this. But if you're in a scattered place because you are, your nephew was in an accident and the ex of your sister is coming and all this like kind of chaotic energy around you, it's probably just that. Anthony said, if he's stressed out, tarot is very, very difficult. I need to ground, and then I can ask the cards for help. And if I can't, I'll ask the cards for help sometimes. Yeah, you could also ask the cards how to ground. That's a good technique as well. If you're so scattered and you're not getting good readings, you can ask how to ground. Okay, so Cindy said still trying to learn how to read tarot. So we are going to talk now. Let's go down. This is not a full-blown course on tarot. Obviously, today I'm going to be talking about tarot for like 10 minutes, but you will get some insights into it, and hopefully some of what you learned today will help anybody who's been struggling with tarot. So we have tarot and oracle cards as 2 different methods, though they have the same function. We are using imagery in most cases in order to divine meanings, right? So tarot this is not a history class on tarot, but if you were looking at a traditional tarot deck, it typically has 78 cards. It's based on the Rider-Waite tarot system. And then there are also tarot decks that are a little more avant-garde. They may remove some court cards. I'm going to show you a deck I have that removes the court cards, and I actually really like this deck a lot for intuition. Oracle cards will not do not follow any strict pattern. They can be any given number of cards, from 30 cards to, I've seen some oracle cards that could have 70 or 80 cards in them. But they do not follow a strict pattern, like, for example, traditional tarot, or a tarot that's following the tarot of the Rider-Waite deck. Now, there's two different ways that you can use tarot. There's more than two different ways. There's two different ways that you can kind of divine the meanings from tarot. So in one way, you use the prescribed meanings in the book, or the prescribed meanings of that card based on the Rider-Waite system. So if you want to learn the tarot, what I recommend, like if you want to learn the prescribed meanings of the tarot, I have so many things here to show you. It's like show and tell today, so I hope I don't forget any of this. I've recommended this book before. So this book is called Tarot for Yourself, and the author's name is Mary K. Greer. So if you want to learn tarot and try to learn traditional meanings, this book will help you, but it will also help you intuit the meanings for yourself. So what I like about this book is it takes you through the cards, but it's a workbook, and you learn a lot about yourself as you go, and then you have a stronger anchoring into what each card means for you. And I think you become a stronger reader by reading by picking a book like this and kind of going through all of the cards yourself. Now, a similar book is this. Now, this book I haven't read, like Mary K. Greer's book. I've done this book. This book I've used some of it, but I haven't sat and read this one cover to cover. But still, quite a good book. People recommend it all the time. It's called Around the Tarot in 78 Days. This is by Marcus Katz and Tally Goodwin. Around the Tarot in 78 Days. So again, you wouldn't have to do 78 days, but you could. It goes through one card a day. And it helps you eventually learn the meanings. And it is this book especially is based on the standard Rider-Waite meanings. So I do recommend somebody who wants to become serious about tarot. I recommend really do learn the Rider-Waite meanings of the cards over time. And then there's all kinds of intricacies of how they connect to the planets and how they connect to numerology and different things like that, and the elements. And kind of learning that if you want to become serious about it. But at the same time, anybody can use tarot to intuitively guide them. And so a second way to use tarot is to not look at the book. So you use your own intuition, and rather than looking at the book, you try to divine the meaning from the imagery on the card. What does the imagery make you feel? What do the colors make you feel? Does it remind you of anything? What thoughts pop up into your head? Are there any words that come through? And all of this is really important. And what will happen sometimes, we're so worried about getting it right, and we want to make sure it's the right meaning from the same as the meaning in the book. And so we just basically throw our own intuition out the window. And then we never challenge ourselves to learn how to intuitively read. So what I like is a combination of both methods, where on one hand, you're studying the cards over time with maybe one of these books like this, and you're getting insight into the cards, and you're getting insight into yourself. And then on the other hand, you're practicing intuitive tarot reading or intuitive oracle reading, where you're pulling the card and then first pausing and then jotting down the things that come through for you. So like, what is the card? Does the card make you feel? What images pop into your head when you first see the card? Does it remind you of anything? Does it make you think of anything? Is there a memory maybe that it pulls forward out of your past? Do you hear anything? Sometimes clairaudient. The other thing too is we want to make sure that we're not shutting off or ignoring any of our other clair senses. So sometimes people will actually hear things, or words will pop into their head, for example. So that is what I recommend. So when you are first learning to do the tarot, I personally think it can be helpful for you to take that pause, jot down meanings that are coming through to you intuitively first, and then open the book, then look in the book and see what the card means. And I think that you will then become stronger in your own reading. Now, there is a myth about tarot that I would like to dispel. If you believe the myth, it's okay. I think it gets in the way of a lot of people's ability to do tarot. There's a myth that says someone else has to give you your deck for you to be able to divine with it, and I honestly, I just think it's BS. Because I remember hearing this myth like 25 years ago, and then I had these decks, and then I was like, oh, I guess I can't really read on these decks I bought, and then I had to wait for somebody else to buy me a deck. I mean, there's probably some usefulness in where this comes from, but I can read perfectly fine on decks I buy myself. And I know a lot of the witches in my coven, they say the same thing. They can read fine on the decks that they buy themselves. So how do you choose a deck? There isn't really a right or a wrong way to choose a deck. I think the first step would be like, do you want a tarot deck or do you want an oracle deck? Tarot decks are probably more complicated and complex, so if you're newer and you might be feeling overwhelmed, maybe you go with an oracle deck first. But I personally like to use both. As you notice in the readings that I do in Body, Mind, Witchcraft, I always pull a tarot card and an oracle card together for our readings every week. So how do you choose a deck? I would recommend letting yourself be guided to the deck. Go into a shop, especially if you can find a store that has open samples that will let you look through the cards. That can be nice. Or if you have friends who have decks, you can look through their decks and decide if it's one that you would be drawn to. But also sometimes you're just drawn to the name of the deck, or you're drawn to the picture on the front of the box, even if you've never opened it before, or there's just something about it says that you need this deck. And there's so many different decks. So I'm going to be showing one that I particularly like in just a moment. But I just wanted to share a few, just show and tell. So many decks, like I have a Game of Thrones deck. I have Arthurian Legends deck. I have a Lord of the Rings deck. I have a Unicorn deck. I have several cat decks. And so sometimes people like I collect decks. I collect them for the artwork. I do a lot of readings, but I also collect them. And so some of the decks, like the Lord of the Rings deck, I can't really read off of it. It's more, for me, it's more a novelty deck. But this is a neat deck that I really like. I know that some of you have tried it before. This is the Dark Goddess Oracle deck. I really like this one a lot. And I think that this deck in particular, I use this one to sort of divine which deities, which goddesses to work with in our Shadow Seekers membership and in our coven. And I learn a lot about the goddesses through it, but I let them kind of come forth and speak to me through these cards and let me know, who would like to work with us, or what goddesses will be good for different intentions that we have. So I like that deck a lot. This one I wanted to share with you. This is called the Arc Animal Tarot and Oracle deck, and it is more on the expensive side. I'll explain why. I don't think it was $100, but it was probably close because it's two full decks inside of it. This deck is by Bernadette King, and I wish I could remember. She's on Facebook, and she's got a big page on Facebook, but it's not her name on it. I can't remember what her name in Facebook is. But anyway, this deck's really interesting if you like animals, especially. You can buy her animal tarot deck or her animal oracle deck, or this has both inside. And it's big, and it's got a really big book. So sometimes people don't like the little tiny pamphlets. This has got a full-on, like, colored book that comes with it, really well done. And then on one side, it has the tarot deck, and on the other side, it has the oracle deck, and you can pull a card of each. So it's kind of an interesting. Let's just pull one here from the center and see who comes up. Well, the first one that comes up right here on top is the bear. So I really like the imagery on it. And then this deck also has, this is coming from the Oracle side of the deck, but it also has some keywords that you can read as well. So cool deck. There's also another deck that is, it's called the As Above, So Below deck. So if you're somebody who collects decks and you just are interested in different kinds of decks, there's this other deck called the As Above, So Below deck. And it also has 2 sets of cards. And one is, what I really love about that deck is one set of cards is like, first of all, it's all geared towards witches. And one deck of cards is about like the magical and the mystical. And then one deck of cards is all about the mundane. And so you'll see imagery of witches like in their mundane lives in the one on the one deck, on the mundane side of the deck. And then you'll see witches in more of their magical world and the other. So just different kinds of decks can be really cool to use. Okay, so we're going to pull a couple of cards here right now. And I encourage you too, if you've got a deck nearby, pull a card too. Tell us in the chat what you get. So let us pull now. And we're going to ask the full moon a question. So what truth is being illuminated for us right now? And so the deck I'm using here is one of my favorites. This one is called the Psychic Tarot for the Heart by John Holland. Now I'm going to preface this with, this is a deck for relationships, but it's not what I use it for. I received it in the Hay House subscription box quite some time ago. And I found this deck extremely intuitive to use. It does not have any court cards in it. But when I pull these cards, I feel like I immediately get the answers that I need. I need to see, and I understand what the cards mean. So let's pull a card for us. What truth is being illuminated right now? Okay, let's see what we get. Okay, so this card we get is Master. And so what I like about this deck too is the black cards here these are all of the major arcana. And they actually follow the major arcana pretty well. So if you actually know Rider-Waite or some form of the major arcana, you will also make connections to these cards. So this is the Devil card in a Rider-Waite deck. So what is being illuminated for us right now? I mean, perhaps we could use intuition to say there's something that's kind of like clenched down, clamped down inside of us. Maybe we feel like we are being controlled by something, or there's something that we feel that there's something out of our control. And but what I like about this deck is so much like between the word and the imagery, there's so much that we can intuit before we even were to look at the book. And like I said, this is a relationship deck, so I literally don't ever look at the book. Now there is a second deck that he made that's just called the Psychic Tarot, and it's similar to it. It's just not the angle isn't towards relationships. So you can also use this deck very intuitively as well. It looks very similar. Each of the suits is connected to an element, and that's kind of neat as well. So let's pull another card. Did anybody pull a card though for what is being illuminated for them right now? Stephanie said the Dark Goddess deck is calling to her. It's a great deck. You really like it a lot, and a nice deck to learn about the goddesses too. Sonia says she has a reverse deck that has both sides of the cards. I have been thinking about getting that. Is that the I forget the name of it. I've been looking at a deck like that too, that one side is the front of the card and then the other side is the back of the card, and then it has 2 different meanings on each side. Melinda, she pulled a card. She said from the Oracle deck, the Cosmic Pearl Oracle, the Sacred Bloom is what she got, meaning it's happening, anew you, patience. Taliesin said he uses the Sacred Circle Tarot, which is a great deck. He said first he ever got, and he feels like he's cheating when he uses another. Yeah, sometimes people can feel like they're cheating if they if they turn away from a tool that they found a lot of connection to. Okay, I'm gonna pull one more. Let's pull one more card. Let's see what question. What is ready to be released? Okay, so we talked about how the full moon is a time when we may be starting to get ready to release something that we can then release as we move into the second half of the lunar cycle. So what is ready to be released? So if you have a deck at home, you feel free to pull a card for yourself too and see what comes up for you and share it in the chat. What is ready to be released? Okay. So this card is confront. We also have this is also from the major arcana. This card is 18. So this is the moon. So sometimes the moon is veils what we can see. It's all about our intuition. But in this card, you can see like with the word and the guy, it looks like he's confronting his shadow, right? So that maybe there is something that that needs to be released that we're holding on to in our shadow, perhaps. Maybe something that you've been pushing into the shadows that needs to be illuminated now in the full moon and then can be released as we move into the darker half. This could also encourage us to move inward and do some shadow work. So I really like this deck a lot. So again, and just because I like it doesn't mean, you would buy it and then you would also love it too. I think that decks are they're very much about the person. One deck works for someone, doesn't work for another person. But I at least have found that deck to be very, very intuitive to use. And it's really helped me, like I spoke in the beginning, about having trust issues with, many of us have issues of belief, of self-doubt, right? When we're doing it, is this really real? Can I really trust my intuition? And that deck has really helped me get over that and feel like I'm stronger at divining. Now, another deck I just wanted to show you because I shied away from this deck for a long time. I don't even know how I acquired it. I think someone gave it to Beth, and this is the Osho Tarot deck. And I don't know if anybody's seen Wild Wild Country before, but I saw it several times. And it's a crazy story about the Rajneeshis and Osho, who's the leader of the Rajneeshis. I found out this deck is not actually, he did not make this deck. It was one of his followers made it. But I shied away from using the deck because of the story of the Rajneeshis. And there was like murder allegations and things. But anyway, the last night I literally opened this deck. I pulled one card, and it was like I couldn't even believe. I'm trying to find it in the deck now so I can show you. But let me see. See, now I'm not going to be able to find it. But to me, when I did this, I was like, this is such an intuitive deck for me. These cards really speak to me. So I might never even use the book and just use them as an intuitive deck. Can't find it right now. Oh, here it is. Yes, this is the deck. I just pulled this right out of the deck. And the card says guilt. And you can see there's like hands in the woman's head. And she's like in kind of despair, right? And I was feeling really guilty about like feeling like I'm not giving enough to various different people in my life, I should say. And this card was like exactly how I was feeling. Really, the picture perfectly summed it up how I was feeling last night as well. And so that's kind of interesting. So now I've found another deck that I may begin to use. So let's see. We need to move on so we can talk some about Pendulum too. But there is one final thing. Sometimes there's like, there's Oracle decks you can use. This is also an interesting deck. It's called the Stargate deck. It's out of print at this time. But what I really like about this deck is I use it for kind of symbols. And so instead of gaining, like, let's pull a symbol out of the middle here. So it's like the eye. And so you pull a symbol out, and then you can look for this symbol in other places in your life, and you can sort of divine meanings from that as well. So I like that deck. There's so much you can do. There's so much more you can do with a deck of cards than, just simply pulling a card and reading the book. So that's what I'm hoping. That's what I was hoping that I would leave you with when it comes to tarot is, it's not one size fits all. There's a lot of ways that you can work with it, and a lot of different decks you can choose. And if you haven't found one that speaks to you, I'll tell you, in the beginning, I took out many decks, um, and they didn't always speak to me. So if you have decks that you've bought and they don't speak to you, look for another deck. It could just mean that you haven't found the right one yet. I see some people have been putting some cards that they pulled in the chat too. Cool. We got 10 of Wands reversed for someone, 10 of Swords reversed for another. Taliesin got 10 of Swords reversed. Andrea got 10 of Wands reversed. Okay, so let us now, let's see. Okay, I'm like ahead of my notes. I'm just getting back on track. Okay, so let's segue into the pendulum now. Yeah, so we don't run out of time here. This is why I couldn't do 6 different methods in one day. So the pendulum is great for yes/no clarity. So whereas the tarot and oracle cards are very good for like telling a story. You see some of these cards I showed you. We can connect to the imagery. It can connect us to feelings or memories we might have or colors we might have. The pendulum is great for yes and no clarity. Now, the pendulum can do more than yes and no, but it's especially good for yes and no clarity, especially when your emotions are kind of tangled up. Maybe you're worried that you won't be able to interpret pictures accurately, and you just need some kind of a clear signal. The pendulum might be what you need. It can be good also for clarifying things about your interpretation. So, it's one of the things I like to do is so let's say, like going back to this card that I drew last night about guilt. Maybe I want to ask some more questions about this. So then I can go to my pendulum and I can begin to ask questions about the pendulum. Okay, so the way to use a pendulum, if you've never used one before, I've got some recommendations. First of all, I slept with this pendulum underneath my pillow for several moon cycles before I ever used it. This is a nice technique to get you to bond with the pendulum. Now, also, it's important to note that just like a deck of cards, not every pendulum is going to speak to you. Just like not every deck of cards is going to speak to you. So this is a clear quartz one, or I'm sorry, a rose quartz one. I have a tourmaline one. I have a lot of different ones. This is the one I made. This is the one I'm very synced to. That I'm gonna do a little something with in just a second. But there's metal pendulums. I personally don't like those as much, but some people really like them. This is kind of an interesting one that instead of having just like this one has a chain on it. This one has beads. And then this is, let's see, what stone is this supposed to be? This is the golden healer stone. So you can also have pendulums of different types of stone, and they might they might divine for you in different ways. Maybe one stone is better for getting messages about health. Maybe another stone is better for getting messages about money or prosperity or things like that. Now, when you first use your pendulum, so again, like I said, so I slept with this under my pillow for a while. I charged it took it with me to the beach, charged it with me. I took it with me places. Like I bonded with it. It's my friend, and it's like an extension of me because I've spent so much time with it. And that's why I'm good at using this one, that I may not be as good at using other ones because I've spent so much time bonding. So I definitely recommend bond with your pendulum. Then the next step is you need to figure out what the yes or the no is of the pendulum. So you want to ask it a question that you already know the answer to. So a question like about your name or your birth date, like, is my birth date March 26th? And then you're going to look at the movement of the pendulum. So let's see. So it's going forward and backward. And this can sometimes change from session to session too. So I always start a session to get the yes. There goes the yes. So the yes is forward and backward. And you may not be able to quite tell. I think you can tell on the camera, but we're going forward and backward. And then we would ask a question about that we know the answer is no. So let's see. Was I born in Chicago? Okay, so Yep, see how it's going now, see how it's going side to side. So I was not born in Chicago. Yep, there we go. So you basically set it. Usually, if you worked with it for a while, I would just do a yes and a no, kind of figure out where. So yes is forward and backward, no is going to be left and right today, and then from there I can begin asking questions. And so the questions that you are going to mainly ask are yes and no questions. But as you get more advanced, there are other ways that you can use the pendulum. So I was just pulling out things and I came across this box that, like, back when I was first starting out, this is like in the late 90s, I would sign up for all these book clubs, and there was a book club called One Spirit, and you could get all kinds of free stuff through it. And they sent me a pendulum in this box, which has some stupid little book about reading a pendulum. But what's kind of cool is it has, I noticed, I hadn't looked at this in years, but it has these little cards, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but let's see, here's one that, so like, for example, this one says when in the middle, and it says now on one side and later on the other side. And so you can actually make things like this for yourself. Like here was one about, this one's about love. So see, it says love, infatuation, or lust. So somebody could use this if they were doing like, what is my relationship with this person? Here's one, like this one's kind of interesting: play safe or dive deep. So a lot of these will be, this is an interesting one: fake or real. So you can actually make cards like this for yourself, and then you could use them when you do the pendulum. It's usually best when you're first starting out that you only have two choices, but there are also pendulum boards that you can buy or make where, that sometimes will even look like a Ouija board. I've made one where I put all the letters around it in a circle, and then I had yes and no and some different words in the middle, and then you can use the pendulum and see which words or letters the pendulum goes to. I haven't had as much success necessarily having the pendulum spell out things, but sometimes people do. For me, it's my success usually comes with the yes and no. If I want clarity, like if I want clarity about the cards or just quick clarity about something, I will use it. So who here uses a pendulum? We'd love to hear from you. Andrea says she has some rose quartz ones, but the one she's connected to is her chevron amethyst. Yeah, so there's different, you're going to connect to different stones. Taliesin said, I have two, but only used once to find something in the house. Oh, that's another good way that you can use a pendulum, is to help you find something. Is it in this room? Is it in this room? So asking yes and no questions, and then you get closer and closer and closer to where it is. He said it worked, but then the chain broke and I didn't prep it, so maybe that is why. It could be. Sometimes they're just not made very well. So sometimes there can be a deeper meaning to it. But like the place where I buy these, and I put these in some of our Shadow Seekers prize boxes sometimes, and sometimes I pull them out of the bag and they're broken. So sometimes they're just not made very well. But there could also be a reason why it breaks when you're using it. Andrea said she has a board, but you can absolutely do it on paper. Yeah, you can absolutely write the letters or yes or no or different things on paper. You don't have to buy all the fancy stuff, but it can be fun to have it too. Okay. Tabitha said Jason uses a pendulum and his is malachite. Anthony said he got one from a Shadow Seekers prize box. Yes. Yeah, I put those in some of them. Okay, so that is the pendulum. Like I said, excellent for yes, no questions, excellent for clarity. I like it as a second divination method also after tarot or oracle, and then I'll go to pendulum, but sometimes I just like pendulum too. I think pendulum, to me, it can also be a way to talk to spirits as well. So, is anybody here? Oh yeah, somebody's here. Are they in the room with us? Oh, it's getting crazy. See, that was my yes. Oh boy. Okay. I've always, sometimes when I watch these replays back, I can get the sense that the spirits like to come when we are doing the episodes because they like to be with us. And my God, I'm not doing anything. So are you to the left of me? That's where I always see him. Okay. All right. Maybe we'll do an episode where we talk to the spirits that are in this room one day. Okay, but in the interest of time, let's move to scrying. So scrying is the third and final technique we'll talk about tonight. Scrying is gazing at different mediums as divination. So we can gaze at a candle, we can gaze at a bowl of water, we can gaze at a black mirror, a crystal ball. Now, scrying, I think, is a good method for people who really like to have a more intuitive, perhaps even image-based form of divination. Now, I think what's important about scrying, so all the things we've talked about with the other methods, about grounding and centering, about balancing energy, about working on self-belief, all of this is important for scrying as well. I think maybe even more so because we don't have, like with the cards, it's very clear. Here came a card. It's just a matter of whether I understand it or not. A pendulum will tell me yes or no. Scrying, sometimes you can stare at the candle flame and maybe you see things or you hear things, and then you start to question whether you really saw it or you really heard it or you're making it up. And so I think that when it comes to scrying, self-belief is even more of an issue here. So you really want to work on that. So if you have doubts and you want to do some scrying, really work on your self-doubt. Now, it's important to remember that scrying is not always about imagery. So, for example, we stare at a candle flame long enough, we let the mind relax, and then eventually things come forward into our intuition, right? So same goes with a bowl of water. You stare at a flat surface like a bowl of water. You stare at it long enough, your eyes begin to relax, and then the idea is that images will come forward. So the same with a scrying mirror. Scrying mirrors or black mirrors, it's just a black surface where you stare into it and you relax enough, and then eventually images will come forward. At least that's the theory behind it. Now, you can use crystal balls. So that was the original time we think about fortune telling, the original fortune tellers using crystal balls. I also have a black scrying or sphere. So this is one that you can just take with you on the go. And the first group of online coven initiates that I initiated, each one of them got one of these in their initiation box, and then the place we bought them from doesn't sell them anymore, so we only were able to give them to a few people. But this can be used. Again, you just relax and then you sort of let images come forward. But here's the thing that people will stare at it, for a while, and then either maybe they'll start to doubt themselves or they'll just say nothing's coming forward. But one of the things that you have to remember about scrying that we always forget is that it's not just about imagery. So even though we are staring at it with our eyes, the scrying ball itself is a medium. The mirror is a medium. The candle flame is a medium. The water surface is a medium for us to open up our own energy centers, our third eye, our crown, our throat, all of that, open that all up and receive divine messages that are coming through. So those messages, depending on how your clairsenses work, may not be images. So when people are staring at the scrying ball and they're like, nothing's happening, it could be that they're so fixated on trying to see something that they're missing the fact that other things are coming through. So if you are somebody who is claircognizant and you're doing scrying, you may have thoughts pop into your head that you may be disregarding or negating or just pushing off because you think that it's supposed to be images. So really, if you try scrying, really open up your senses. And this is where learning what your clairsense is, your strongest clairsense is, can be important. So I had a few episodes that I was gonna share with you, and let me just put a link to this one in the chat. But this is an episode on the clairsenses. So if you are somebody who would like to try scrying or just divination in general, I recommend checking out this episode. And and figuring out which of your clairsenses is the strongest. So if you are claircognizant, your messages may come through as thoughts. If you are clairsentient, they may come through as feelings. If you are clairaudient, it may come through as sounds. If you are clairalient, it may come through as smell. So we really want to open up all of the senses and, and not be missing some of the divine messages that are coming through. So that is what I would say about kind of opening yourself up. Because remember, the surface, like I said, is a medium. Now, candle gazing itself can be a divinatory method, so we can use it for scrying. But even if you are not using the candle to scry with, I recommend if you are doing scrying. So let's say you're going to do like something with a scrying ball or a crystal ball or a black mirror or something like that. I would try some candle gazing first, because the candle gazing will stimulate your third eye and your pineal gland. People, we don't know as much about the pineal gland as we will eventually know about it, but there's, this idea that the pineal gland is the physical gland inside the head that probably connects us to the energetic third eye. And so when we open that up, all of a sudden we are opening up, we're expanding ourselves, our consciousness, and we're going to be more open to all of those messages coming through. And remember, all, like when we talk about synchronicities, they're happening all around you. You don't see them all because we're just not open to everything. But when we candle gaze, we open up our intuition. So I recommend people try a couple minutes of candle gazing before they do other forms of scrying and see if that helps. Another thing to remember is that you need to be relaxed, just like with the other divination methods. You need to be relaxed. You need to be open-minded, because it may not come through the way you expect. You need to kind of release your expectations, and then see what comes forth for you. Has anybody done any scrying before? Of the three what we're talking about tonight, scrying is the one I have done the least amount, though I do like doing it. But I'm definitely more tarot and pendulum for sure. But yeah, so try scrying. Our coven, we're going to be making black mirrors for scrying together at the end of the month for our coven meeting. For anybody who's not made one before, or if you've been wondering about making one, you can make a very cheap and affordable one just by getting a picture frame and some glossy black paint, and you paint one side of the glass black, and then you put it back into the picture frame and let it dry, and you can have a black scrying mirror that way. So a lot of people like making them. Otherwise, you can buy obsidian black mirror, ones that are already made. They can be pricier, and I also think there's just something nice about making one yourself. So anyway, so Stephanie said she has done candle gazing, but not the glass or ball. Yeah, so try it. Yeah, try it and see, or try it even if you don't have glass or a scrying ball or something. You can also try scrying on the surface of water. So do the candle gazing and then try the water gazing after it. But yeah, I think anybody who's having, and in fact, I should say too, when it comes to the candle gazing, if you're having trouble interpreting tarot or oracle cards or pendulum or any divinatory method, try a few minutes of candle gazing first, stimulate your third eye, and then try your method and see if that works. And by the way, too, you don't have to use a black mirror for scrying. You can just use a regular mirror as well. Because I see Carrie said she's used an old mirror. Yeah, so you could use an old mirror. I know people who would just put a candle in the bathroom, turn out the lights, and then they just kind of stare in the mirror. So there's not like a right or a wrong way to do this. You just want to find the way that works best for you. Okay, so more techniques that will be coming up in part 2. Automatic writing we'll be talking about. A lot of people have asked about that. We're going to be talking about different ways to do bibliomancy, so that's using books for divination. And then we're also going to be talking about symbol reading, so tea leaves, candle wax, symbols that we might see out in the world around us. We're going to be talking about that as well. So let's just talk about the takeaways before we end here. So a few takeaways. Tarot and oracle cards are very good for more structured insight, storytelling, because you have the pictures and the imagery. Pendulum is very good for clear, directional answers, especially if there's like one or two options. Scrying is very good to activate your intuitive vision, but also your other intuitive senses. So you could try the divination method that seems to be calling to you. You can try all three. The full moon is hitting its peak on Thursday. Do a session where you pull some cards, do your pendulum, and then maybe do a little candle gazing and or scrying with another medium. And see what comes. And you can build your answers on top of each other. You can use different methods to help you clarify other ones. And then remember, another thing too is doing something to thin the veils a little can help. So I like using mugwort. So you can get it like a sage bundle like this. This is actually black sage mugwort. Mugwort thins the veils just a little bit, and it can help you increase your intuitive abilities. So if you're having trouble with your intuitive methods, try that. Try to burn a little mugwort. See if that helps. You can get these at Mountain Rose Herbs. You can't always find mugwort. You won't find that necessarily in every witchy store, but you can definitely find it on Mountain Rose Herbs online. Um, Lemon balm and passion flower are also two herbs that are known to relax you. So if you're keyed up and maybe that's what's keeping you from being intuitive or being able to read your divination, try to take some lemon balm or passion flower. They're gentle. They can help you with sleep too and dreams, but they will at least take the edge off and they might be able to help you with your divination. Get into a light meditative state first, like we mentioned, ground and center. Try maybe some kind of a self-belief exercise, like we talked about in the beginning, and then make sure your energy is balanced, and then see how your divination works for you. So I hope that has helped you. I hope it's opened you up. Maybe hope you learned something new tonight, and maybe something new that you want to try. Another thing I was going to share before we go too is like this was just a little like this is called. This actually came in the Hay House box way couple maybe a year or so ago. And this was called the Crystal Ball Pocket Oracle. And I don't know that I would necessarily recommend somebody go out and buy it, but I got it for free in the box. But it has just like, it's got about like 10 or 12 cards. And it's just got things like reconsider. So you ask it questions like you would kind of ask a crystal ball. What does that one say? You're going in the right direction. So it can just kind of affirm certain things. Here's one that says, let go. But that's kind of a fun deck, just carry in your bag or your car with you and just pull it out if you want to ask a question. That is kind of fun too. And then I plan to do a full episode on tattvas eventually, but tattvas are elemental cards. They come from India, often used in yogic traditions. They have these little symbols. So there are symbols for each of the elements. And so, for example, like, I'm pretty sure this one is just like water, but you can gaze at these. So people will use these for meditation. So kind of meditating on water by gazing at this and then letting images and sounds and feelings come through. So I wanted to show tattvas because, they can be used for like as a meditative practice, but they can also be used for gazing if you want. But I'm going to do a whole episode on that eventually. Okay, so let us we're going to end now because we've run out of time. But and if anybody has anything that they'd like to put in the chat, any remaining questions, I'll stick around. We could still answer. I'll answer as many questions as there are still here. And then I'll take off. But yeah, so Carrie said she'd like to learn how to use the pendulum better. Yeah, so like I said, try sleeping with it under your pillow, carry it with you. I put it in this little special pouch and bring it with, I basically got to know it well, took it with me to the full moon, charged it there. And then after months and months and months of doing this, then I became really connected to it. So I also wanted to let you know what's coming up. So if there's anything people want to put in the Q&A now, go ahead and do that. Coming up next week, I had planned to do an episode on, oh, now I can't even remember what it was. Oh, glamour magic, because I planned to do an episode on glamour magic, which is kind of like changing the way that you're perceived, is the way I use it. But I'm thinking I might end up doing an episode on Saturn return, because Saturn is going, oh, not Saturn return, sorry, Saturn retrograde, because Saturn is going retrograde on this Sunday, I believe. And so it's going to be a good time for people to do shadow work and go internally. So I may do an episode on that. And of course, we have a part 2 coming up of our divination methods coming up in the future as well. We have another episode on more dark gods for shadow work. And then we have Lunaza right around the corner in Lionsgate Portal. So we'll be doing episodes on those as well. And Carrie said, "Can we watch this afterwards?" Yes, totally. So you could totally watch this episode. It goes live into the Facebook Body Mind Witchcraft group, and then we put it up on Body Mind Witchcraft's YouTube channel afterwards, and we also mail it to everybody on the mailing list. So yeah, these episodes are around, and you can watch them later as well. And So, I also will drop in the chat a link to an episode I did a while back on self-belief. So for anybody who's struggling with that, if that's in the way of your intuition, I'm going to drop that in the chat. You could check that one out later as well. Okay, so I'm going to sign off because I need to go teach several hours of calculus now to a student. But as always, it's wonderful to be with you guys on Tuesday nights. I just saw in the chat that Anthony said it was a great episode, especially when the spirit showed up. We may do more with that spirit, because I've been thinking that spirit was around. It may be more than one, but at least one of them showed up and really told us that they were here. So I will see you all next Tuesday. If you like what you hear, leave a thumbs or a heart, or a thumbs up or a heart somewhere in the episode. This will help us get it out to the feed of more people. Make sure to subscribe to our Body Mind Witchcraft YouTube channel, and that way you will never miss a future episode. And until next time, blessed be.